The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Bill Ames, the host of The Film Connection. We've been on ECAT now for over 20 years, and we've got a very interesting show for you today. My co-host, Priscilla Almquist-Olsen, we are going to be talking to Adam Clewer. Adam is the pastor of the South Shore Community Church, which is located on, I believe, Torrey Street, next to Thorny Lee Golf Club on the way to downtown Brockton, co-locating with a country club. Not a bad idea, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So Priscilla, where do you think we should start this interview?
Well, I think we should first welcome Adam
Thank
to
you.
the show
Mm-hmm.
and to give us a little bit of your background. I can hear distinctly an English accent.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, my name's Adam, and as you can hear, there's the sound of Old England in New England. So I originate from Southampton, England, which is the port city on the south coast, famous for the two ships, the Titanic and the Mayflower.
Oh.
So I originate from there. My wife is a US citizen. She grew up in Pennsylvania, and we've been married for 21 years, and we've lived in the UK for most of that time. But 5 years ago, we moved in this direction, and we landed in Easton on a cold January morning in 2019. So we shifted in this direction. We've got two daughters, and they're dual citizens. So when we travel, we've got a big pile of passports.
Yeah, I met Adam. They moved into the Shovelworks complex where I live, Ames Shovelworks complex. And your daughters used to see, and you used to see at the YMCA swimming pool the whole time.
Absolutely. Yeah. We landed not knowing anyone, but in a great location in a really fantastic town near the library and the Y. So we joined both of those almost immediately, and we've been swimming ever since.
I had the pleasure of going to one of the services over at the South Shore Community Church, and it starts at 10:30. Adam nicely invited me over, and I met some people there I knew, which was nice. But I got there at 10, and he said there'd be some great music, and I was really sort of blown away by the band there. It was gospel, but it had just the right touch to the whole thing, and very energetic group. And they're there, I think, every time, right? Every Sunday.
Yeah, we've got some good people.
So tell us a bit about your services before we get to the big picture.
Yes, so we would be a Bible church that's looking at the life of Jesus and seeking to follow him. That's our backdrop. We're not rigid in terms of religious rules. You don't need to dress in a certain way. We're looking at the life of Jesus and seeking to live like he did in worship and in the way we are towards other people. One slight correction, we start at 10, but most people arrive late. You bucked the trend and you arrived early.
Okay.
So you heard the musicians practicing, rehearsing. We meet from 10 till about 11:15, 11:30, and there's something for all ages. We've got young babies up to people much older, and everything in between. So we're a mixed group of people, and everyone's welcome.
Well, it's a great experience. Well, being a Film Connection, we're here to talk about your participation or your experiences in making films and videos, which I know you've had a lot of experience doing that, especially in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell the folks at home a little bit about your video series that you produced recently, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so I'm involved in a film project called Glimpse, or Glimpse Series as the website is known. The story behind that, in Southampton, I had a friend of mine who was a filmmaker, and in the church world, the nature of communication and sermon can be quite kind of one-dimensional. Often, there's a stage or a lectern and someone teaching it, and that's good and that works. But for many people, we don't always learn just because someone is standing at the front and speaking. And I've always enjoyed the creative expression of learning and communication and storytelling and the visual side of things. And I'm going to go right back, when I consider Jesus' teaching, so much of his teaching wasn't in a lecture room with a lectern, but he was telling stories and parables, and he's using props. He's saying, look at the fig tree, and when it does this, and he's illustrating himself like that. So there's always been something in me that's aspired for communication to be more creative and vibrant in how we tell our stories. And life is full of stories. So a friend of mine who's a filmmaker and I, with a team of others, all volunteers, created something that we've called Glimpse. And we make these short films that are 4 or 5 minutes long, and they're available online on Facebook and on YouTube. And they, as the name suggests, give a glimpse of an insight into an idea, a topic, or a theme, often that points to Jesus, but covers topics that cover all of life.
Well, while we're on it, why don't we take a minute to show the folks at home one of your clips?
Yeah, let's do that.
Do you ever start your day angry? Before your head leaves the pillow and your feet hit the floor, you're already annoyed, braced for what the day might bring. I remember meeting a man once early one morning when I was walking our dog in the park, who was really annoyed about a new sign that had appeared in the park that said dogs weren't allowed in a particular section. I remember thinking, how can you be that annoyed and that angry so early in the day? I greeted him with a warm good morning. He responded, no, not really, as he fumed at the sign, which he then proceeded to ignore as he walked into that section of the park. He called over his shoulder to me, I've walked my dog here for 30 years. I responded, wow, that's a really old dog. He didn't laugh. We've probably all felt like that on some days, but for some people it seems to become a way of life. It's as if they wake up, eat breakfast, get dressed, and then put on some boxing gloves, ready for a fight. They then proceed to wear these boxing gloves into every conversation, meeting, and setting they find themselves in. It's a posture that acts like there is an enemy behind every corner, a fight waiting to happen. Constantly braced like a boxer, both defending and ready to strike at any moment. Hit and don't get hit is a common phrase in the sport of boxing. Some people live this mantra out in their everyday life. It's exhausting and it's hard to be around, but sadly, it's far from rare. In the New Testament, there are a series of life lessons in a short letter called James. In one of them, the author touches on the subject of how we carry ourselves. Be quick to listen. Be slow to speak, and be slow to get angry. This short sentence is loaded with wisdom that can be applied to our everyday lives. Be quick to listen. Stay open and curious. Welcome the unexpected in each day. Be slow to speak. The world is full of noise. Don't rush to add to it. And be slow to get angry. Some people are like a rumbling volcano waiting to erupt. Don't become like this. Yes, life will throw some curveballs at you, but don't react too quickly. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. The author James does not pretend that life will always be easy. We have all suffered and will suffer some hits. But standing your ground does not have to mean attacking everyone else. If we let anger become so much a part of our lives that it starts to define us, like the gloves are always on, the results are both exhausting and destructive. Even when, or perhaps especially when, we've got good reason to be angry, sometimes the bravest response is to choose to take off the gloves.
So that was an interesting clip. So tell us how many of those did you make, and what were the locations where you did them, and what was the relationship between the location and the content and things like that?
So we've made, I think there's 4 series and there's 6 films in each series. And the visual side of the films take us to different places. Sometimes the visual will be, we made a film about time and about how time is always ticking. And in life, we like to think that we are in control of our time, but realistically, we are. All the time's a gift. And we filmed that locally in Massachusetts in a clock shop. We met a really interesting guy who services and repairs clocks, which is a dying industry, I guess. But then there are other films where we've traveled to places because we had to illustrate the film and we just needed to be in a certain location.
Back up, tell us about this clock. What does that have to do with your mission?
Well, the mission is, how do we communicate the story of Jesus? How do we see that? So with time, there's a parable in the Old Testament that says where the parable reads, "My times are in your hands." And the challenge of that idea or that message is many of us like to think that the time is in our hands. We like to think that we're in control. And we've all met people in life that sometimes are described as control freaks, because for them it's very important, but actually time isn't in our hands. So we wanted to explore that subject, and the visual backdrop of the film setting for that film took us to a clock shop where I met a very interesting man who worked there. I asked him, "How long have you done this job?" And his answer was 41 years and 10 days. And I laughed at the uniqueness of his answer, because this man watches time.
I get it.
And that's why he answered the way that he did. So often the visual and the story bring it together. And then there have been other films. We made a film called Valleys, where we talked about in life there are high points in life and there are low bottom of the valley moments where life does not go to plan and things don't work out as we hoped that they might. And we filmed that film in the Grand Canyon, with the high points filmed at the top and the low moments filmed in the bottom of the valley. And that was a fantastic visual, incredible sight to behold.
The harsh vacancy of Death Valley has inspired equal parts fear and intrigue for generations. Encompassing the Great Basin and Mojave Desert, Death Valley is the driest and hottest place on Earth. This is a place of extremes. I've heard stories of the undersides of people's shoes melting as they walk down the street. The desert only averages 2 inches of rain per year. Death Valley has been described as America's darkest shadow, the place where the night shines blackest, where the infinite stillness is almost tangible. The aptly named Furnace Creek currently holds the record for the hottest air temperature ever recorded. At the last census, only 24 people were registered as living in Furnace Creek. Seemingly, life in an oven is difficult. But what if we're missing something? What if there's something else going on? Something concealed, present but not always apparent. What most people don't know is that the seemingly barren soil is full of wildflower seeds. New life hidden in a desert called death, waiting to burst forth when once a decade, a phenomenon known as a superbloom occurs. The hills and valleys of Death Valley are transformed into a sea of flowers. Despite Death Valley's name, there is life here. I've heard some people talk about Jesus in a way that seems to focus more on death than life. If you've ever played the game Monopoly, you've probably seen the get out of jail free card. It's not particularly valuable, it's not that important, and it doesn't change the way you play the game. I've heard some people talk about Jesus in a way that sounds like the get out of jail free card. The message roughly goes, you're a bad person, you've done wrong. Most of us wouldn't deny that. If you're not careful, a fiery furnace awaits. But if you pray to Jesus, say sorry for your sins, He'll forgive you. And when you die, you go to heaven. It sounds simple, right? But it's not the full picture. To me, that message sounds like bad news with a back door. Like life after death only. While some aspects of it may be true, it's a stingy version of what Jesus actually offers. Everywhere Jesus went, He offered good news to broken, hurting, confused people. Jesus walked into their stories and offered hope. Jesus said things like, today this promise is fulfilled in your hearing. And the kingdom of God is at hand now, not just after death. Jesus said, today salvation has come to this house. Today, now, present tense, not just after death. Yes, Jesus offers the hope of eternal life, and He cautioned people of the dangers of refusing Him. But His message changed the present. It powerfully changed people's lives in the present tense too. And unlike the Monopoly get out of jail free card, it did and it does change the way you play the game, the way you live your life. Sometimes our lives can look and feel like the desert, dry, parched, and at times fruitless, forever a place of waiting. But that doesn't need to be the end of the story. Instead, Jesus offers Himself now, like rain falling on a valley called death. Life can erupt now, and that life changes everything.
Thanks for watching this glimpse. We hope you liked it. And if you did like it, please make sure to like it.
And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It helps make this channel work, helps us make new videos, and it will let you know when new videos are coming out, which will be soon.
There's been a lot of television evangelists, just sort of jumping around here for a second.
Yeah.
I watch that Joel Osteen occasionally, who's from the Riverside Baptist Church or something in Texas. Have you ever heard of him?
I've heard of him. I've not watched a lot of his stuff myself.
Well, he's part of a long succession. You know, we had Billy Graham, Norman Vincent Peale, going way back, Billy Sunday, but Joel Osteen, his congregation bought the old Compaq Center in Houston, and Joel Osteen and this speaks to a point I think we can discuss for a while, is basically a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
You know, I think he gets a huge audience because he motivates people, and look at the bright side of life, and the Lord speaks, and the Lord will take care of you. Just have faith and keep moving ahead, type of thing. That's sort of similar to your messages, I would assume.
I've not seen or heard all of his stuff, so I can't make comment. But I do believe that everyone's looking for something, and clearly there is a huge self-help industry, life coaching and this kind of thing. Everyone's looking for something, and it's my belief that the emptiness that at times we ignore, and at other times we go, oh my goodness, there's some gaps here. I've not got everything in order as I would like to think in life I have. It's my belief that it's in Jesus that we find the hope of the world, which in itself changes us and guides us in how we should live. But it's more than self-help. For me, it is that point that on my own, I'm lacking. I've done things I wish I hadn't done, and said things I shouldn't have said, and Jesus makes a way to change that, which is both forgiveness of the past and enriches the life in this moment with the confidence of life beyond this moment. So yes, it's self-help, and who doesn't need that? But it's more than that. For me, Jesus changes everything.
So your videos are on YouTube.
They are.
Tell us a little bit about your number of hits and some of the metrics.
So YouTube and Facebook, which is a wonderful noise that never stops. Social media is just endless noise, and like most things, there's a good side and a bad side. You can spend too much time, and it can be unhelpful, but it can also be an incredible resource for communication and for messages and things like this. So we're on Facebook and YouTube. We're bigger on Facebook than we are on YouTube. Facebook still is the platform which seems to have the most viewers and audience, recognizing that younger crowds are looking at TikTok and Instagram and so forth. But we've found incredible interaction where we'll post a film and somebody the other side of the world will comment or interact or send us a message. And it is remarkable how the world has shrunk, and how places that we've never been and people we've never met suddenly are interacting and responding and engaging with some content in a film that we put out.
So have you had one or two that had an especially high number of shares and comments?
So not massive numbers on YouTube, probably 7,000 or 8,000 views on YouTube, but some of the Facebook films have exceeded much bigger numbers than we expected. So we made a film called Life Before Death, and that film reached over 200,000 views in the first week. So you never know how that's going to go.
How long was that one?
That was 5 minutes. That was a film that we shot in Death Valley in California, and we filmed in 120-degree temperature.
Oh my God!
So it was a remarkable setting and experience.
Yeah.
That I actually really enjoyed.
Yeah. My question is, so does your congregation support these excursions financially?
Yeah. Well, Glimpse is a voluntary, non-profit donation organization. The church is supportive of it, but my main role and commitment is here to the local church. The nature of those films is we'll travel in a block, and so that film was one of 5 films that we made in 6 days in a trip. So it was an intense trip of filming and a lot of travel, which sounds very fun, but is actually incredibly exhausting. So I'm local, I'm here, I'm around almost every Sunday. I think in the last year, there were 2 Sundays when I wasn't locally in church. Yeah. It's exciting to have side dish projects, but I never want the side dish to be at the expense of the main dish. There's times we've probably all gone in the restaurant and eaten lots of side dishes and bread and can't finish the main. So Glimpse is a side dish.
So tell us how you did you start this church? What was the origin?
Yeah, I didn't start the church. There was a congregation there previously that merged into our existing church, and I came into the role early 2019. Before then, there was an interim, and then there was a previous leader. And the church has and is always changing, which I think is a positive thing, because life and culture and community and congregations are always changing. And I arrived in 2019, and the church looked like this. And then 1 year later, we had the pandemic, and the nature of the world, of which the church is part of that, is changed and is changing again. But we're seeing new life, new hope, new possibility. So it's a good time. It's a good time to be alive. It's a good time to be part of a local church.
So you on Zoom too? Speaking of the pandemic,
we're on YouTube. We live stream every morning. During the pandemic, the online platforms really helped us to maintain a connection.
Yeah,
we were live streaming before, so that helped us. There was that time where everyone kind of pivoted in that direction, and that was the means of connection. And now we operate both in person and online, and there's a different community engaging in both of those spheres.
So when you write these videos, are you the author? Do you write the videos yourself, or do you sort of get a concept in your head and a location in your head and just sort of keep shooting until you get it right? Seat of the pants type thing.
Yeah. So the idea, often the word glimpse is quite telling. Sometimes there will be the idea that will begin like a glimpse or like a seed, and seeds have a tendency to grow. So ideas always begin with a spark or a seed or a glimpse. And I'll often expand it, talk to my wife. She's a great creative thinker, and we'll explore that. And then I've got a proofreader called Laura, and she's fantastic with ideas. And then Mikey, the filmmaker, he'll often then come in next, and an idea will cook and brew it. And sometimes an idea will spark and burst to the finished script within a week or two. And sometimes an idea will be cooking on the back burner for several years. We've had some films that we've been chewing on the idea, and it's been percolating for probably 3 or 4 years before, okay, now I think it's ready.
But Adam,
I think we can go make it.
These are only 5 minutes long.
I know.
I mean, that's like, people say it's easier to write a novel than a short story.
Yeah, I think the nature of the creative process can't be rushed. So sometimes you'll hear something and you instantly know what it is, and it would turn into a message or a film. And other times you'll see something and you think, well, there's something in this, but I don't fully know what it is yet, but I want to listen to it longer. So we've got an idea that we're working on at the moment that may come off, that has been brewing probably for about 2 years.
I mean, for another 5-minute show?
For another 5-minute film. And the
Lord.
idea has been brewing for 2 years, and it will probably involve some extensive travel. And then we'll end up with a 5-minute piece.
Have you ever heard of GPT?
I have.
Have you ever used it?
I haven't.
I think you should.
I'm tempted. Shortcuts are always tempting.
Well, it's a first draft. Look at
Yeah. But there's what's the phrase? There are no shortcuts to anywhere worth going.
Yeah.
So I'm always open for advice and guidance. And absolutely, there's times when maybe there's a quicker route. But I think sometimes art and creative ideas, they can't be forced.
Well, I just as a sidebar here, I was involved with a local Grange in Easton, and we had a poetry contest.
Okay.
So the state said they wanted each Grange to have their local competition, and the poem was to be about the joys in your life, and it could be no longer than 8 stanzas and 4 lines per stanza. That was the outset, and it had to do obviously with Easton Grange. So the meeting's at 5 o'clock, right, when I'm supposed to present, and it's 4 o'clock, and I haven't done anything. So I said, if there was ever an excuse to learn about Chat GPT or whatever it is, this is it. So I went to OpenAI, enrolled in, and I started doing my little email thing. I'm sure many of you out there have done it, or some. And I said, I need a poem, maximum of eight stanzas, 4 lines per stanza, and it has to be about the joys in my life. And it also has to involve the Grange with a capital G. So, my God, 2 seconds later, out it came. The audience was blown away when I read it. I mean, I told them immediately,
Yes.
that I wasn't, that I was I was the guy at 30,000 feet who said, do this, and the ground troops of AI delivered this poem.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, it's truly amazing.
I didn't even have to tweak it, and it was very moving. About because what they do is AI processed in, and we're staying on your points here. So I know it sounds like I'm wandering, but what I read was that they got all these romance novels, and they put it in the mix of AI. We're talking algorithms here and things like that. So we're talking emotions and gratitude and all these different emotions in life. And that's why that poem came out so good. Amazing. I mean, it was, I guess they have buckets about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and things like that, but they knew right when they saw the word poem, gratitude, my life. So anyhow, not that I get 10 cents of 10% of every time you use AI or anything, but what do you think about that? I mean, just for the sake of discussion here.
I think that there's something of the human touch that's worth the extra effort.
But these are all scanned romance novels.
Entirely recognize that when you're time squeezed, or for certain elements, or for very basic mundane tasks, I think go for that. But when it comes to the creative process or the arts, I'd rather go the long way around. I think
every one of my friends who's a writer says the same thing. I'm unanimous.
Yes.
I tell them my story about the Grange and the poem. It doesn't matter, but I just tell them it like it's a first draft.
Yeah. Well, you can get a photocopy.
It's a way to get started.
You can get a photocopy of the Mona Lisa, but it's not the same thing.
Well, there you go. It's like Glastonbury Cathedral. You can't restore Glastonbury Cathedral because then it's no longer Glastonbury Cathedral.
Exactly.
That's sort of like.
So, Adam.
So Priscilla, you take over.
Well, I have a few questions. Yes.
Yes.
What has been the response of your audience? They must be varied responses, but what are the major ones that you've found from the audience who, views your films?
Yeah, great question. Any response is good. So any feedback is helpful. And we didn't put them out thinking we want to please everyone. We want to provoke thought. The idea of a glimpse is neutral. When you have a glimpse of something, it's temporary, but it sticks. And sometimes it makes you take a second glance and look again, or ask more questions. So a glimpse, by definition, isn't the full picture. It isn't seeking just to satisfy or please. It's seeking to stimulate something. So when we look at the feedback, it's always encouraging when someone says something nice. Who doesn't like that? But when someone asks a further question or makes a point or in a positive, respectful way disagrees, that's okay. And when we look at our feedback, and I consider the response and the feedback that Jesus received, when we read the Gospels, there's people that are loving what he's saying, and there's other people that are saying, this guy's crazy, I don't want any part in this. And then there's a whole bunch of people in the middle, or people that begin at this stage and then move to this stage. And if that was Jesus's experience, then I'm okay with that being our experience too. So largely positive, but often, what about this? Or have you considered this? Or I don't agree with this. And all feedback can be helpful. I think there's great value and wisdom in listening.
Well, and how does that impact future films?
If there's helpful feedback that we can learn from, then absolutely. I think the nature of any creative process is the idea you're working on. You always think this is the best one, but then when you look back, you realize actually we've made improvements and adjustments, and now this one's the best one. So So feedback's always helpful. I think if there's someone that's simply hostile, that doesn't necessarily mean that we stop doing what we're doing. I don't think you'll find anyone that's ever led anything, an organization, an office of government, that hasn't received hostile or contrasting views or opinions. I think you've got to be confident in knowing who you are and what you're doing, and largely the feedback's positive and encouraging, and the ideas keep flowing, so we keep making new content.
So you look at the comments, just staying on this point, you look at the comments and say, aha, that's an interesting take
and we
on
receive
this.
comments that are public and messages that are private, and they're all considered, they're all looked at.
Do some of these comments actually make you think of new themes for new films?
Sometimes, sometimes, and where ideas come from can't be restricted. So all of life should be about listening, learning, and observing. So yes, I'll read almost anything. I've said comically, I'll meet with anybody once. You know, most people, and sometimes ideas and come from the most unusual places. So yeah.
So maybe while you're fishing, right?
Oh,
let's talk about your fishing.
Often while I'm fishing, yes.
I know a bit about it but I've seen your blog, and tell the folks at home how you got involved with fishing and what it means to you.
So fishing is my happy place. So my grandfather was, the title he had in an English term was river keeper, which means he maintained the banks of a beautiful stretch of a river known the River Test in southern England. It was a chalk stream, world-renowned fly fishery with trout and salmon, and he kept it in good order. And one evening, I think we were having dinner, it was a Friday, there was somebody that was fishing that wasn't meant to be fishing. The term is poaching. My grandfather went over, and the guy saw him coming. He dropped his rod and he ran. And my grandfather took this battered old rod and he gave it to me. And that was my first fishing rod. And the seed of an idea was planted, and I became a fisherman that through my teenage years, I had a paper round, and any money that I earned was spent on fishing tackle and bait, and every weekend I went fishing. And I loved fishing for trout and grayling, and then carp, which in Europe is a very popular sport fish.
Yeah.
And a fisherman was born.
So you do expeditions, and here in the United States, I know. Do we have carp in America?
You do. So fishing grew for me, and in my early 20s, I had some support from a company that was making some bait, and they gave me bait half price, and I would send them catch reports of any fishing trips that I've had and any fish that I caught, and they would use them in magazines as catch reports. And in 2006, I was 26 at the time, one of the pictures that I'd sent in was published on the front cover of a magazine. And that got me sponsored in the fishing world. And sponsorship led to invitations to write, which led to invitations to travel. So this boy that was given a tired fishing rod that a poacher dropped suddenly ended up in the remarkable world of sponsorship writing and traveling to all manner of locations within Europe and around the world, fishing and writing stories about it.
Around the world, like, give us an example.
I did a trip in Gran Canaria in December when it was incredibly cold, and there we are in this beautiful location, enjoying the sunshine a week before Christmas, attempting to catch a fish for a magazine article. And
where's Gran Canaria? Gran what? Cayman?
No, Canary Islands.
Where?
Go on. Yeah, the Canary Islands.
So Canary Islands. Okay.
Sorry. And a number of other trips in France and other places that we've been to, which was fun and still is fun. So fishing is what I love to do, although the New England winters are not ideal for somebody that likes the freshwater fish.
Yeah. So what's your blog? So folks at home, if they want to search look at your check. Well, I guess they'd go to Adam Clewer.
If you Google me, you'll find some fishing things. But I'm currently writing for a magazine online called Carpology. But I've also written for publications in the US. I've written for the North American Carp Angler magazine, which is part of the Carp Anglers group, and a few other titles in the US. I can't remember them all. So
Carp get pretty big, though,
they
right?
do get big.
Tell us, what's the biggest carp you've ever caught?
Just under 50 pounds.
Good Lord.
Which is quite large.
That's not swimming around Shovel Shop Pond, is
That's
it?
not. Sadly, it's not in Easton, but there's some big fish in the Connecticut River. So
Oh.
you drive 2 hours west, and there's always a chance of a big one.
So do your daughters pick up on this too?
They've always come on a trip with me. We'll have a daddy-daughter trip once a year where we'll go camping and toast marshmallows and drink hot chocolate. And
Yeah. Cute.
but they don't go fishing in the way that
Sure,
I like to go
Sure,
fishing.
sure.
Do you throw back?
Yes,
mini
catch
fish?
and release. Although if I'm fishing for trout or salmon, they might make their way home with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's a good. Do people eat carp?
They do, but I wouldn't advise to eat carp. They're bottom feeders, and a big fish by definition is nearly always an old fish.
Mm-hmm.
So if you eat a trout or a salmon, you want a fish that's young and fresh from a flowing stream. The idea of a carp that's
50-pound carp is
old and a bottom feeder, I don't want to eat the oldest cow in the field.
yeah.
So,
Isn't that interesting, Priscilla?
What?
Isn't that interesting?
Oh,
About
yes.
the carp?
Yeah.
Who'd have thought?
But I thought carp was like big goldfish.
I guess not.
I guess not. Yeah.
No.
Well, the Japanese have them, don't they? Swim around in Japanese
Koi carp,
pools.
yeah, very popular, very very high value. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, it's interesting, the measure of the man, the hobbies we have.
There we
you
go.
know,
Yeah.
speaks to many things about life and self-starting and what you're, because the great outdoors is its own spiritual experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm sure it's a good time for you to think of future sermons when you're out there casting the rod and
Absolutely.
contemplating your future. So, well, it's been a great half hour or so, Priscilla.
Yeah.
What do you think? Have we missed anything that we?
Well, I think we should give Adam the last word.
Yeah. So, tell us about any future projects you may have.
Yeah.
And how it's different from the past.
Yep. So we're now talking, and it's early November, so Christmas is coming. So as a church, we're looking forward to celebrating Christmas, and we've got a number of Christmas services that anyone's welcome to. So that's coming up. We're not filming anything for Glimpse at the moment, but we've got some ideas brewing in the new year, and we've got the films that we made earlier this year that are currently being released once a month on the Facebook and YouTube channels. So keep an eye out for those. They're coming. But this is a great time of year to give thanks. Obviously, Thanksgiving is the moment where we sit and we gather and we give thanks.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as a family, we've got lots of things to be thankful for. So I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then seeing what the new year brings.
Absolutely.
So tell us what your website would be. Is it South Shore Community Church?
Yeah, so South Shore Community Church, MA, would be the church website, and glimpseseries.com would be the film website.
Say that again.
Glimpse Series.
Glimpseseries.com.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, or look for them on Facebook and on YouTube.
Well, thank you, Adam, for being with us.
Thank you for having me, both of you.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. So this is Bill Ames speaking for Priscilla Almquist-Olsen and our guest, Adam Clewer, the pastor of the South Shore Community Church. Thanking you for inviting us into your living room here. And we look forward to future shows that we create, and hopefully you'll watch for the Film Connection. So thank you very much, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.